welcome back to the club. We're your hosts. I'm Ebony Chapman.
And I'm Akila Friend.
You guys, today we are joined by two co-founders of an air freshener company. They happen to be brothers, but they share the same common goal of showing up and being passionate, not just about their products, but also about ownership and entrepreneurship. Okay, so please let's give a warm welcome to Trey and Donovan.
Hey guys. Hello.
Hello, we are so happy to have you. And for all our listeners, we want you guys to stay tuned because we're going to have a special announcement of a giveaway later on in the episode. So please figure out how you guys can enter to win.
Yes, but before you do that, like we said, we're going to jump straight into talking to them about ownership, about entrepreneurship, and about air fresheners. How about we start off with that? I mean, there's so many things that you guys could have decided to go ahead and start your venture in, especially as brothers and together. But what made you guys decide on air fresheners as the product that you all wanted to sell?
Yeah, so I can start with this one. It was originally my brother's idea. Well, let me just introduce myself. I'm Don Brown, co-founder and marketing director at Ride Fresh. This is my brother Trey, the visionary behind the entire idea, which ended up being a business. And so really what motivated us was two things. One was a creative idea, which was his idea to begin with. And then that blossomed into the evaluation of, and then the decision to get into the business because of, the lack of competition, the lack of barrier to entry, and the level of opportunity that existed within the space. Once we actually started sitting down and looking at the space, we realized how much opportunity there really was for us to get in and for us to create a brand that would challenge some of the other, historic brands that have been around in the space and haven't been forced to evolve in any way. So, it was really just a business motivation for the most part, which was sparked by, really just a creative idea. And that's kind of how we got to where we are with the brand now.
I think that's so interesting that, you kind of you went into the space because it was less competition, right? And I feel like that is, in an entrepreneurship world, like kind of the best place you kind of want to position yourself. So Trey, can you talk a little bit more to that aspect of like, not just picking something because you're passionate about it or you're into it or want to, you like it, but right, because you felt like this is something we can be successful in?
Yeah. So first things, thank you all for having us here. Again, my name is Trey Brown. I am head of partnerships and retention here at Ride Fresh. Like my brother said, we came up with the idea. I had this idea in my head. I have this thing where I do where every 5 years or so, I just do like a long brainstorm session and I think about like, hey, has this been done? Like, where can we make some money in a specific lane or whatever? And so obviously you guys know we weren't like super passionate about air fresheners, right? That's not like our passion or anything like that. But we realized after doing research, it's an $11 billion a year industry, right? And it's only growing. And the vertical inside that industry that's growing the fastest was, you guessed it, paper air fresheners, right? So that low barrier to entry in that plan, we knew that we could utilize culture, our culture, bring that to that market and then expand from there, so different products, different, offerings, things like that. But we wanted to catch that wave and insert, hip hop culture into it so that we could then build a brand to then expand out to other ideas and concepts. So that's kind of how it started. It wasn't really a passion project for us. We've done some of those in the past. Us and our co-founders, we've done those before. But into our 30s, it was more about figuring out like where the money is, like where is the bag? Like to us, that was more important, right? It wasn't like, oh, like I'm super passionate about A, B, or C. It's more like, okay, we need to find a unique place that had that low barrier to entry so we could enter the market as easily as possible, as quickly as possible, and then capitalize as quickly as possible. So that's kind of what the mindset was going into to Ride Fresh. And so that's really what we're passionate about, right? Which is building, legacy, like building wealth, building these things that historically for our community, we just haven't had a chance to do. So we want to be examples as to how to do that without having to be necessarily a tech forward or tech driven company necessarily. You can do it in various different ways, and there's so much opportunity out here to do that. You just have to think about unique ways in how to enter markets, right? So that's kind of.
I think there's so much there, and I love that you mentioned the whole idea of creating wealth and that being, you know, the reason behind it. Because I think oftentimes in entrepreneurship, people are almost scared to say I'm in it for the money. It's almost like, you know, it's taboo. It's like I'm passionate. I, you know, would want to, you know, burn the midnight oil because this is something I love to do.
And I would do it without getting paid.
And I would do it without getting paid. You know, sometimes you're forced into that, but no one wants to, you know, jump into something knowing that they'll be broke. And I love the idea that you're very forthcoming about the fact that no, like this is something that we saw can be valuable, and so we're doing it. Can you talk a little bit more about, like, okay, once you have the idea, you did the research and said, okay, there's an opportunity there for me to tap in, for me and my brother and our other partners to tap in. Like, what was that next step? You know, because sometimes you see the opportunity, and oftentimes we do see it, but how do you go from seeing that opportunity to realizing it?
Yeah, I think, so we could both talk on this one for sure. I think it was a process of, because all of us really were career entrepreneurs, and had started and failed at and succeeded at also numerous businesses, and ideas and concepts. So I think that previous experience kind of like, you know, molded us and made us capable of evaluating the potential of another business from a different perspective. Like, even to this day, I have people who it's their first time starting a business, and it's just a different approach than when you've gone through that process before. Whatever business you were in, it doesn't matter if you start an eyelash company or an air freshener brand or whatever it is that you want to start. There's steps to it that are like, you can Google what those steps are. Right? I'll create a business plan, blah, 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 blah. Those are kind of like the general things. But at that point, to Trey's point earlier, like at that point in our lives, we had a bit more experience and had, you know, kind of gone down that path before. So once we got through the idea phase, it was a very like tangible, step-by-step process of, okay, how much would these cost? You know, figuring out the basics. How much do we think we could sell them for? Right? How many do we have to get as a minimum order quantity when we first get them? How are we going to sell our first batch that we do invest? You know, and so we had to just figure out like the steps, the basic steps of, you know, and what kind of financial commitment we would be looking at, right? And that was just a process of just doing our research, figuring it out after realizing that, hey, there's opportunity. What does it look like for us to actually take the steps to get into the space and get these units? So from there, it became a process of, working to figure out like what this brand was going to be, what the actual physical products were going to look like, how many colors we were going to have, how many scents we were going to have. And that took, I want to say, about 6 to 9 months, just getting, the design elements down, the thickness that we wanted. We had to continuously order samples from different manufacturers to make sure we got the right thing. I remember I was really big on the thickness, right? Because I'm like, look, if we're going to have a higher quality air freshener, the whole vision for the brand is that it'll be like a designer car air freshener, right? Which is like, okay, it has to be better, it has to smell stronger, it has to be thicker, our packaging has to be superior, we have to have a little manifesto on the back that talks about what it means. Like, we want this to be popping. Like, we don't just want to slap our name on something, see if it works, start up a Shopify store. And no offense to anybody who does that, because that's also, you can get in those spaces, but we have to actually take the time to build out the product, right? And like, that did take, like I said, six to 9 months for us to actually do that, order those samples, give them feedback, and get to a point where we're like, all right, now we're happy with the product that we actually have. What type of order quantity do we want to go with on this first one, and how do we actually go about selling them, right? So that was that process really in the first year, was like actualizing the physical product.
To add to what Don said, I mean, I would say the 3 things that I would highlight in that journey of like what that process looked like was, number 1 was customer discovery, right? So that was knocking on doors, getting a million no's, right? Like, we're not taking your product, and then why would, and then from the yeses, why do you like our product? Why do you want to take it? The second thing is boots on the ground, right? So again, like I just mentioned, we didn't come into this as professionals on how to pitch air fresheners, right? Like it wasn't that. But what we started to do was to get out here and kind of like bump our heads a little bit as to like how we could do this. So we started out in the beginning, we were like knocking on doors, and then, you know, eventually we figured out that this model, that there's a better model in a subscription model, and we're going to try that, right? And we're going to do that, and then we're going to see how that works. And so then once that works, it leads to the third thing, which is adaptability. So this is all an evolution. It's just like a creature. It's a natural process. Like once you get a core process that works, it becomes a core part of your business model, and then you have to adapt and move on to make it better, right? To make it faster, because things are always changing. Like same thing in nature. It's the business world, the business mindset is constantly changing. So how do you add to that in order to create a superior product, a superior streamlined product that works for a group of people that can now create a sustainable and viable business model, right? Like that's sort of the evolution behind how we got to where we were today. And those were like the main steps that we took. Everything else is like small pieces, like Don said, the marketing, the content, but all of that revolves around the adaptability, the customer discovery, and the evolution really of like what we want to be. So
yeah. So within that of like you finding this business model that works for your business, is this something that you feel like you can apply? Like, let's say you're like, okay, we went public with the Ride Fresh, we sold it, we are millionaires now, we want to start a new business. Is the business model that you're learning right now something that you can apply to a future business that you wanted to do?
Absolutely. I think in numerous ways, right? Like one is, you know, what you guys touched on earlier, which was the idea that you don't have to necessarily be passionate from like, this is my life's passion, my life's work. You do have to be passionate in the sense that you have to be willing. If you're not passionate enough about the product necessarily, you have to be passionate enough about the process and the idea of creating that business, right? Because one of the things we learned is that, yes, you don't need this to be, again, your life's work, but like you better be passionate about like creating business and becoming an entrepreneur. Because that's going to be, if you don't have one of those motivating factors in the long run, it's not going to work out for you in any entrepreneurial aspect. Even if you're doing it as your second or third business, it's not as likely to work if it's not something that either you're personally passionate about or that you know are passionate about your identity as an entrepreneur and the idea of building business, right? So like that would apply to anything else that we wanted to do. The second thing is like that I've learned is like teamwork, right? It really does make the dream work, right? So like all of us had jobs, all of us had priorities. Some of us have kids and are married. Like, so, you know, the idea of us having been able to get this far without like actual teamwork and different people doing different things to move the business forward is impossible, right? So like, you know, everybody doing their heavy lifting at one point or the next is something that I think was absolutely paramount in terms of being successful, and something that we could apply and that I have applied to other businesses and will in the future, right? Which is like, I don't know about the whole, like, I do everything all the time. It's all me, my business, just so I could brag on Instagram. Like, nah, like, you know what I mean? And then the third thing is learning the different aspects, like, of collaboration, right? So, like, not everyone that you work with needs to necessarily be a founder or a partner in the business. You might have someone who's really great at designing products and stuff, and you get them involved in the beginning, but just because you get them involved in the beginning doesn't mean they need to be a founder or a partner in the business. You might just need to partner from the aspect of, you know, hiring them or working with the freelancer, right? Or not every partnership is co-ownership, right? And I think a lot of us do that. We're like, oh, I'm gonna work with you and me and you are gonna start a business, right? It's not always that. Sometimes you need to start a business with the other people that you think can be founders, and then you need to work with the other people that are in your circle or in your network to help build that business. So those are all concepts and things that, you know, we've all learned through the process, and that could definitely be applied to like future businesses and efforts as well.
Yeah, I'll tackle this from a different point of view, because I know Don talked about the business model, and that's also that portion of the business model. But like in terms of our business model, from like just a number standpoint, we are subscription based, right? Air freshener brand. So in terms of that part of things, I mean, there's really the content that we produce There's the digital ads that we serve, and there is the shipping that we do, right? Like the shipping out of the product that we do. This is around subscription. I 100% believe that this is something else that you could put towards different products and different businesses, no matter what. If we're talking about just subscriptions, yes, subscriptions are great, but I think really the key here is that we're not starting off with something that and supposedly it's like a bad thing to say, and then it's, to me, I completely disagreed about this, forever. But it's what a customer needs and what a customer wants. And for us, it's kind of like we started off in the what they want section, right? And then we plan to create something that they need, right? But in order to create a brand that's popping, that's popular, right? It's not what they need, really, is what they want, right? And so you can build a brand off of that and then get into the need. It just solidifies everything else going forward. What you started at was the bait, right? And bringing in the customer because it's something that they thought was cool. Again, not necessarily something they need. And then as your product line and brand expands, you can get into what they want. And so we kind of are doing that, what you guys said, which is like bringing it to other business endeavors, right? Because it's like we have different things that we're doing within Fresh, right? So, and they're all under the same umbrella, yes, but they're different businesses under the same subscription media content that we're producing, right? So they're all going to have their own lanes. So yes, we fully believe in it and have been invested in that model. And so I think, yeah, it's a very powerful model. And I think that if somebody has something that they think would work in a subscription base, those would be the three things that, that would work well. So.
I think that's very helpful. And I think let's break it down for folks too. I think we got to take a step back and first break down the big entity that is Fresh, and then specifically Ride Fresh. And then let's talk about why you decided to go into subscriptions and what is it about? Because I think it's very interesting. You think of this rise of really subscription-based models for a lot of products that before you wouldn't have. I have a subscription right now to for my toothbrush. Like every 4 months or so, they'll send me new bristles, they'll send me the whitening. And I'm like, this is something I would never have done prior. Where I think as a customer, do I fall within that need or want profile that you described? So again, like if you can describe the company overall, Ride Fresh, and then specifically your subscription and why that really feeds into what you're doing as a business.
Yeah. So, Ride Fresh is a brand, right? And to Trey's point, our strategy was to build that brand and then to be able to expand into different products from, under that brand, right? We haven't done that yet. We're on the way. And so right now it consists of a monthly subscription model for air fresheners, car air fresheners, in which you get 2 a month delivered to your door for $5 plus shipping, right? Over 16 different scents and counting. Also have a licensing deal for products with the NBA. We have 5 NBA teams, and we also have some Viacom and Nickelodeon properties. Namely, the biggest one is SpongeBob SquarePants, right? And so I think the idea of pivoting to a subscription model came about 1.5 years into the business when what Trey mentioned earlier was happening, which is where we were like, look, we'll be foot soldiers, obviously, for our own growth and our own business. And we're going around trying to sell these things to, smoke shops, gas stations, and vendors directly, because we were, I specifically was extremely confident about the product. And, we've always had our own internal battles, because I came out the gate, I'm like, nah, they got to pay $350. We sell these air fresheners for $5 a pop. We got popping air fresheners. They look better. They smell better. I did all this work to make this product everything it should be. But at the end of the day, the margins weren't there for these gas stations and vendors and stuff to compete with, like, the Little Tree Company or other either paper air fresheners or other car air fresheners, right? And we, at that point, we weren't getting enough of a quantity of air fresheners. Like, we were paying a lot more than we're paying now because we weren't ordering as many as we're ordering now in that beginning phase. And that's something a lot of people in any business are going to deal with, right? It's like, I'm just getting started. I'm paying a lot for these. So you need to be able to think, how long can I either sell this at a loss, right? Can I sell this at a loss for 1.5 years to establish this business, right? And then Trey was like, nah, we can't really do that. Like, we need to move to a subscription model, which was genius because A, nobody was really doing it in the car air freshener space. And then B, for us, it gave us a longer lifetime value, and it gave us the ability to scale the business online using Facebook ads and Instagram ads, right? Because we couldn't use Facebook ads and Instagram ads and pay, $6, let's say, to get every new customer. And then we're only selling you a $3.50 air freshener. We're losing all day. So the purchase price wasn't high enough for us to be able to actually spend money on ads and make our money back. But now when you flip the switch and you move to a subscription model, now the average lifetime value of all of our customers is longer, because, not everybody's going to stay around forever. But if on average I can get you to stay around for 5 or 6 months of our service, now that purchase is I can pay more to bring you in the door, right? And so that's really what the subscription model did and why it was very key to our growth. And then, our plans are to expand that into other subscription products within the fragrance space. But then also, begin to sell other, fragrance and or automotive products, as one-offs, which is those are two of the expansions that we're heading into for this quarter. But the subscription model really was a key to us being able to scale and grow, because again, it allowed us to get that lifetime value at a point that was good for the business.
Just to add to that, I mean, you just described, for me, this is what I find, which is interesting with a lot of these subscription services, right? Which is they offer their premier product, right? Like first, right? So when you say, toothpaste and whitening and all, or let's just say just the toothbrush, for example, right? Like that is like the premier thing. That's something that customers actually really need, right? Like, but then when you get to the whitening, these are all like wants, basically, right? So the difference with ours is that we're looking at it from a macro perspective, saying like, Dollar Shave Club did the exact same thing that you mentioned with the toothbrushes, which is their key product came first, right? But for us, we're looking at it the other way, right? At least that's how we're saying we can offer something that's awesome, that's dope, that customers want, and then we can retarget them for what they need, right? But by the time we retarget them for what they need, we have a user base that's so large that it's just literally retargeting, making more money than we would have if we did it the other way around, right? So that's kind of like the mindset of utilizing that content and social media to produce the cool factor, right? To get in the door and then expand from that point. So that's sort of the reverse model of pretty much everything you've seen in the subscription service, right? I mean, or subscription-based services, which is go with the key product first and then, do the offshoots after that and see if people bite. For us, it was like, well, no, we have all these products that people will bite. It's just about the order in which we do them in order to scale, right? So
First of all, I have to say that, Akila, that was a great question. Like, just to even get more in depth. And I love the fact that both of you guys really gave us the gems.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Like, that was amazing. That was the thing. I love the fact that, like, you made it work for you, like the subscription based scenario, you made it work for you.
It goes back to what they were saying earlier in terms of how do we compete, or how do you get in the door? And it sounds like you figured it out. Right.
Exactly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, listen, go ahead. This is for you. Go ahead.
I think that's where a lot of people on their entrepreneurial journeys kind of like throw in the towel, right? If you're like, look, because as Black people especially, we're very hard workers, right? And when you go to 100 gas stations and, everybody's like, it's too expensive, I get little treats for this amount, blah, 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 blah. A lot of people's first instinct will be to be like, man, fuck it. Like, I don't know how to get this good to be cheaper than it is now without either losing my money, right? So where other people do in other communities is they either have the funding to be like, listen, I'll give you this on consignment, sell it at a rate that's lower. I don't care about making money because my dad is in Forbes or whatever. For like the first 2 years, we don't care about making money, right? And that is a viable way to grow a business and establish a brand, right? If you can afford to do that. But a lot of us just quite frankly can't afford to do that. That's not a strategy that's really on the table for us. So I think it's just a matter of not necessarily always giving up at that point, but then stepping back, just like how we had to do a year before we even had a product, right? Like step back, and this is what Trey's really good at leading that process, is you take a step back, you evaluate the other methods that are either available or that you haven't tried or that other businesses are using, right? And then you say, okay, like, this is an interesting way. Like, we didn't know for a fact subscriptions would work. As a matter of fact, we had a lot of internal debates about that as well. But at the end of the day, it was effective because we could take a step back and like actually evaluate, like, all right, we cannot go store to store right now, people little tree, but we're also not going to give up. So like, what else is next? And it's just a matter of trying shit. Now, it happened to be the thing that worked, right? But had that not worked, we might have had to try 2, 3, 4 other things. And now we're at a stage where we're having to do that as well in order to scale. So I would just say to everybody out there, like, don't think that because you don't get the response that you want at first, or that it's not, you know, we live in a instant gratification generation, right? And so people think, all right, I do the work to like build it. And then, you know, I've had friends who attempted to become entrepreneurs, and like, if it didn't work the way they thought it was going to work, they're just like, they don't know how to process it, right? They're like, I don't know, I did all this work to make it, it's a great product, but like, you're just getting in the game, bro. Like, you're not there yet. Like that, what he came up with, when Trey came up with the subscription part specifically, to me, that like, that defines entrepreneurship, right? The person who's going to like take that as a learning, look around the space and be like, how can I adapt? What else can we do? Right? Not like give it up. So that's just my message to, you know, your audience and the people out there, is like, don't.
Donovan,
everything,
listen, you guys,
everything.
I love that. And I love,
Yes.
you know, you keep pointing back to your brother, Donovan, Trey, of like, and I know, Trey, you went to USC. And so I want to talk about the fact that, like, yeah, fight on. I want to talk about.
So,
you said what?
We did
HU,
both.
HU.
So we both went to Howard undergrad. So I got.
SC get
Yeah, I
the
know.
glory.
Listen, let the HBCs, give the HBCs its love too. I feel it. But you went to school for business. And so I kind of want to get into that a little bit more, why you chose USC, what the connection was. And then I know you talk about the Shark Tank syndrome. I also want you to elaborate a little bit on that as well.
Yeah. So first things first is, I mean, when I love Howard University, right? Like, I would never take that experience back for anything, right? But the thing that happened with me and just our family in general, we're very entrepreneurial, right? And so, you know, you don't, when you're 18 years old, you don't get into this thinking like, you know, you know about college, but you don't know what the curriculum is going to look like, what it's going to be. And so once I graduated from Howard, I actually started in School of B. And then, you know, I was like, I'm not trying to be on Wall Street. I'm not, you know, that's not what I wanted to do. I was like, how do I grow money? Like, how do I make my own business and not have to work for somebody? Because that's what we had seen growing up, right? And so then, you know, I left out. I was working in DC for a couple years. And then a friend of mine told me about this program at USC. This entrepreneurship and innovation, as well as a tech commercialization degree that you could get. And so he was like, yeah, you know, you can take that, you can do this. You got everything that you needed to do, go do it. So once I moved to LA, I understood how important how USC was to the ecosystem, and how many networks were there, and how many smart people actually go through that university, right? So I was like, yeah, I'm down to do it. Like, let's make it happen. So I already had the entrepreneurial mindset before, you know, going to SC, but going there really showed me the competition, and it showed me how things actually work. It showed me how venture capital actually works, right? Like, not the LinkedIn post where such and such just raised $450 million for their company. Like, no, like, what is their ownership of that now, right? Like, what does that look like, right? And so, you know, I learned a ton there, and I met a bunch of people that, like I said, were super intelligent, and I bounced ideas off every day. And what I started realizing was, and I'm not, you know, I'm fairly humble, but what I realized was that I had a gift in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of like strategy and seeing things that weren't there yet, and then literally creating them, right? Like, here's a game plan, and then here's how I execute the game plan. Before, I just had raw entrepreneurship skills, and I could do it here and there, but I didn't really have a set sort of mindset as to how to make these things happen in the business world. And so USC really helped me sort of figure that out through osmosis, through being around millionaires that just broke it down simple. And it's like, you know what, all of this MBA shit and breaking down the models and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And it's just honest, right? It's like you're either going to be those people that work for the person who I wanted to be, right? Or you're going to be the person who's paying the MBA. And I wanted to be the person that was, paying the MBA. And so you had that option there. And I that's where I learned all that information, and I executed on that when I met with these guys and my co-founders, and I was like, listen, guys, if there's one thing I know how to do, it's this thing. So I was raising the capital, that was successful. The partnerships, got that through USC and all these other development, right? Like all the things that we did, and then the execution, the mindset that I brought to Fresh was, we have all these people. All these co-founders serve a purpose, right? Like we're not just friends, right? We are friends, but we're not just friends. We literally are co-founders that each serve a purpose for this business as is. And so now I'm able to pull all of these and I know exactly what to do and how to do it and how to execute it, right? So that's really the SC part, and again, I don't want to shy away from the Howard aspect of things, but I think it's important to say that the balance of both is what really helped me get, through the door. And what I hope to do eventually is go back to Howard and assist and help in sort of driving that mindset and sort of that information back there so that, again, these kids don't have to go spend all this money to go to USC and they can get it while they're at Howard, right? Like, so, you don't need to go to USC. As much as I love USC, you don't need to go to USC to learn this information and knowledge. But now that I have, it's imperative that we give back to the people that are younger than us so that, they can follow through with their dreams and sort of understand how to navigate in this world of venture capitalism and equity and all this other stuff that, 5 years ago, I had no clue what we would be discussing now. So, yeah. And then I think you asked me about the Shark Tank syndrome.
I did.
That I call
Explain it for folks who don't, right? Like talk about what it is to you beforehand.
So Shark Tank syndrome is basically people have this mindset of business and entrepreneurship where it's almost flashy to go in front of investors and say, hey, this is my company and I'm willing to give up 15% or 20% for X amount. And, they think that the dynamic looks like that in the real world, and 9 times out of 10, it doesn't, right? Like that's not how the conversations take place. So people go into these rooms thinking like, I'm going to act like what I see on Shark Tank. And that's usually never how it really is, right? On top of that, I think people's mindset is always that they have to give up something or more in their company than they really actually have to. And they don't really understand where they can't self-identify where they are in their own business timeline, right? They just think, I need money. And so that ends up a lot of times hampering people because they can't do what they need to do because they haven't gotten to the level that they need to in order to be confident in their own business strategy, right? And execution. They're just out here looking for money so bad, they're not trying to execute while doing that, right? And so, that tends to be the issue a lot of times with a lot of different companies and people that I've seen. And I reviewed some of this while I was at USC, sort of that mindset, which is these venture capitalists aren't like, it's not like Shark Tank. They have a set thing that they're looking for, a set return. And if you don't fit within that model, then you're not getting funding, right? Like it's really that black and white. And so, understanding the real venture capital model versus Shark Tank is imperative. You have to understand what these venture capitalists do, why they're doing it, and if you even fit into that ecosystem. Because if you don't, it does not mean that you're not going to be successful. It just means you're not in the venture capital, ecosystem, and you might not need to do that, right?
So for that ecosystem, is it kind of like, I guess, since you're kind of in that space, like what would be those requirements that would say one way or the other, like, oh yeah, I should go down this road, or oh no, I need to find another
crowdsourcing or something.
Yeah, find another place to raise money.
Yeah, so I hope my venture capital friends don't kill me. But they probably won't. I love my friends. But basically, here's how it works. So I got mentored on this, right? By somebody who told me how this works. So venture capitalists pick, first of all, usually industries, right? So say you're in software as a service, right? That's a super hot industry right now. Or fintech, right? Like that's a super hot industry right now. So you're going to get more play if more than if you're like, a lifestyle brand. Most venture capitalists do not invest in lifestyle brands, right? It's not attractive to them. Now, some are starting to change that, but for the most part, no. Because of the fact that there's such a high return on software as a service, right? That it just makes more sense in terms of scalability to go that way or to focus on that. Now, a typical VC is going to invest, in let's say 10 companies, and they expect 7 or 8 of them to fail. And out of those 7 or 8, like the ones that are left, bring back a return for the firm, right? For the venture capital group or the firm, right? Like that's what they're going after. So they don't really care about the business itself, right? Like what it does is like, do you fit into their thesis, into what it is that they're looking to invest into?
Right.
So, most businesses, especially Black-owned businesses, they're not at that level yet for venture capital investment, right? And I think there needs to be more of a conversation around that. I'm not saying that all of them are, because there are some, but there's a lot of people out here, businesses in general, that think like I need venture capital money, but really you could go to get it in different sources. Like crowdfunding is one, loan is another one. Friends and family are other ones, right? Like if this is something that you're actually interested in pursuing, then you need to go look at all these sources of funding and then make a decision. Is this worth it? Like, is this worth 3 to 5 years of my life, right? To actually do this and figure this out? Or is it just something that you say, nah, it's not going to fit in? And once you do that, it actually makes your life so much better because you're so much clearer about where you lie on the totem pole, right? So, I spent, and I know friends of mine too that spent years trying to chase venture capital money when our businesses didn't fit that model. And the problem was that nobody was telling us that because they either just didn't want to or were scared to, or, whatever. Yeah, or didn't care. This is one of the big issues that people face, right? And so I think that dynamic is important in terms of like understanding where you lie on the totem pole and then make your decisions from there.
I love that.
I was actually shocked. Don is about to say
okay.
Well.
I was just going to add, and I've learned a lot about the venture capital space and funding in general throughout this process. And I think, a lot of what Trey's saying is very true. And that's that, you have to evaluate the position of your business in relation to venture capital, in relation to your other options of funding, but then also make decisions based on, like you said, where you do stand in that totem pole, right? So you may have to say, all right, we're not really, VC friendly business at this point. And, maybe you can get a little money from friends and family, but not what you say you need, right? But what you need is relative, right? You may have to just break it down. It's just like any other major task in life or in business, right? Like if you have an end goal and, whether it's being in shape or anything else, right? Like you have to take baby steps. So if you're not there and you don't have those options, then you need to reevaluate, like I talked about earlier, your business model and doing the things within your business model that can get you to that next point, right? To the point where you either are venture capital friendly or you do have enough traction and are making enough money to gain, to get your friends and family to invest adequately, right? Like there are things that you look at your position, but then you also have to react based on what you can control, right? Like you have to look at that and say, all right, maybe I don't need to sell this, and this. I need to only sell these because this is the thing that gives me the most profit margin, right, within my business. And I'm going to sell this until we have 30 grand in our bank account. Then when we have 30 grand in our bank account and some traction, then I'm going to go do friends and family. So it's not a matter, again, like I said earlier, of saying all right, well, we're not VC ready and that's it. It's we're not VC ready, but okay, the entrepreneur in you has to determine how you're going to get there or if you need to get there, right? Let me go and break it down in the steps of what we need to do. I think a lot of people can't swallow that initial pill of we don't qualify for this yet. And like Trey said, they spend a lot of time chasing it. But again, it doesn't mean that you can't still grow your business because you're not there. You just maybe have to tweak some things and say, look, right now in this phase of the business, we need to generate as much revenue on our own as possible. And then we can go, once we have traction, right, which is what we had to do. A lot of people told us no with the money. We had to go back and say, all right, well, we need to grow this subscription. And there's ways, once you know where you are on that totem pole and you know what your business needs to get to the next space, and you're not just out here guessing and freestyling, then you can move towards that. You know what I mean? And you can say, all right, like, we're keeping things alive, we're keeping things progressing.
How do you, because I mean, a wealth of information, y'all. And I'm saying, like, if you guys don't have your notebook out already,
you need to get it out.
Get it out and listen to everything that's happening. But I do want to make sure that we touch on the fact that, again, you guys are, you mentioned the fact that your family of entrepreneurs, you always had that mindset in some capacity. You've started businesses in the past. Like, I really want to make sure that we drive home the message of this competition that you've sought out and you built for yourself within Ride Fresh, but really for the greater purpose of generational wealth. And so what does it mean to you guys? What does it mean to be doing this as brothers? Yes, you have partners involved that you do find as equal founders, but you're doing this together, just building generational wealth for you and your future family.
And
members.
to be Black men, like
doing that.
It's all a Black owned business here. So let's.
So it's definitely a unique journey. Being Black men, and if I could be frank with you in the audience, a certain type of Black man as well. You know what I mean? We are not timid. We are not meek. I don't wear glasses and tuck in my shirt to make people comfortable. I have braids. I speak in sometimes very urban vernacular. And so I think that not only being Black, but like being, I don't want to say hyper masculine, but just not like, I would say this, being strong Black men, right? Like, which is, and I have to touch on that because in the tech space, in the VC space specifically, they do prefer a certain type of Negro, right? And that is a, Harvard educated, Google alum, coder, developer. You have to check all their boxes, right? I hope you didn't tweet anything too, offensive towards white people, right? So like they definitely do, and they already, the chances for Black people, period, are already limited, right? But the slots that they do have, they definitely want a certain type of Black man specifically, right? And I don't think in a lot of instances that we necessarily fit those molds. The way we were raised personally was like, that's not something that we will ever compromise on. You know what I mean? To get anybody's money, because you have to have that confidence in self, I believe, to know that you're going to be successful, right? And so for us, it's always meant a lot. We were raised in a very pro-Black family, and there's been times in the business where we've had to struggle as far as like our own personal identity and how that matches up with the brand identity, right? So like, our consumer base is not, we're a Black owned business, but we're not a business that's, 80 or 90% Black in terms of our consumer base and our subscriber base, right? So we've had to do a lot of learning as far as decision making when it comes to, business decisions, and then how our personal or political preferences or whatever influence that, right? And I think that our journey as Black men has taught us definitely that there's a double standard for sure that we've gone through in every aspect of the business, right? So even if you go back to funding, from Shark Tank to the real VC conversations and the like, we've been at pitch competitions and all these places. And, white boys will go in there and they're not smarter. They don't have a better idea. Sometimes they don't have a better business or business model, but they get so much fucking leeway, right? And you'll hear them say, well, you have holes in the business, but we're really buying the team, or like, you're not making any money and you haven't made any money, but I really like your idea. They don't tell Black men that type of shit. So we learned that we have to be, just like in every other category of life, we have to be more buttoned up. We have to have all our I's dotted and all our T's crossed, and have to have a business model that is very hard to challenge, right? And Trey spent years telling the other founders and the rest of us, like, yo, like, for us to get funding or for us to even be successful the way we want to, because to be clear, we didn't want to make this a side hustle, right? Like, to your point, your question earlier, like, we want this to be something that all of us can retire off of, that all of us can create generational wealth for our families. And when you're trying to do that and not just make enough money to not necessarily have to work, those are two different approaches, to be completely honest with you, right? So like for us, it's a matter of, being able to create that and continue our legacy and create greatness and wealth for our family, which is why we are unapologetic about the fact that is the motivation behind the business. And also to create opportunities for other Black people, create jobs, create, visibility to say, hey, like, I came from a music space. I was rapping for years, chasing the studio. And, those experiences made me like, this business thing is a piece of cake, right? When you talk about consistency and what you can get back from what you put out. So, all in all, like, we know what our journey is, what our mission is. We're very much like clear on that. And it hasn't always been easy as it would be if we were like, more agreeable Negroes in some instances, right? But like not compromising that, like we'll take the L's for that when they happen, right? Like we had to argue about, whether we were going to post about DeJounte Wright, I think was his name. Is that his name? Dante Wright? Sorry, apologies. But, he got shot essentially for having an air freshener in his car. And we had to go back and forth about like, all right, do we post something on our page about this, right? And one of my homegirls actually had to check me because she was like, so are y'all gonna, and I was like, yo, like, my politics, right? Which I won't get into now. Like, of course, I where I stand on that type of stuff. But I don't know if we want the brand, we do have probably 40 to 50% white consumers, right? So it's like, do we do that? Because we know that's not going to be free. So, but then she checked me on it. She was like, yo, so like, are you going to define what this brand is ever or not? Right? Like, and we had to take a stance in that moment. Come to find out, it was our most successful post on Instagram. Not that we did it for that, right? But like, when you stand on something like that as a brand, then people gravitate towards that. And of course, you're going to lose some people. We sent out an email one time that all it did was encourage people to vote. It didn't say for whom to vote or anything like that, right? Touch on any political issues. Of course, we get some responses. Oh, you snowflakes, liberals. And I'm like, bro, all we said was vote. You know what I'm saying? So like, but we're at a point now where like, if you don't want to subscribe because of that, then fuck you. Like, we just got to lose you. But we'll gain 10 other people because of where we stood. So all in all, it's been at times a struggle, obviously being strong, forward-thinking Black men that express themselves and are uncompromising in that. But also, as we grow as a brand, it becomes a strength, right? Like, it's like people identify with that, especially our people identify with that because it's so rare in the space. So, it has its ups, it has its downs, but, our mission is the same. And that is to create that generational wealth for all of our families and to create jobs and opportunities for people that look like us.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. Go ahead, Trey.
No, I was just gonna say on my end, I think you guys asked about legacy. I think my dad said one thing to us when we were kids. He said, I don't care if you're a garbage man, just own the garbage route, right? Like, and that always stuck with us, or at least with me. I'm sure it stuck with you. And I think that did have an impact in terms of us being founders. Both of us, we had very similar mindsets when it came to entrepreneurship and in business. In terms of legacy, more so, I would say that I, like Donovan mentioned, being an example of not having to be, a tech-first business and finding out where you can get in where nobody else is really executing, right? Like, that is the key. It's not, tech is wonderful, it looks great, and it's, a lot going on and blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities outside of that, right? Like, think about the guy who produces zippers for fashion lines, Levi. Right? You know what I mean? Right, like Levi. The person, man or woman, is probably a billionaire, right? Like, these are things that I think we should start to encourage more Black people to think about, because we are so creative and we are so innovative. And when we try to chase this one lane, it kind of goes, in my opinion, it goes against who a lot of us are naturally, right? Like, it doesn't fit with us because we have everything, constantly creating culture otherwise, right? If you look at a lot of the Black inventors from back in the day, these guys were, producing everything, right? Like, and so I think there's a lot of that we want to carry on into in our mark in history, right? And so then 100 years from now, they're like, oh, the guys who created the Fresh brand, whatever, like that would be awesome. And then the last thing that I will say is eventually, hopefully what I would like to do is be a part of that solution in terms of when I mentioned the small Black businesses not getting funding. And, I think that it's imperative to start having that conversation with a lot of these athletes and a lot of these celebrities about, creating a fund, not necessarily just venture capital based, like a culture fund from A16, right? Like that's cool, that's dope, but that's not really helping the community. And so I think the issue that we're going through is like, how do we help get that message across too? And anytime we can do it, we're gonna do it, which is, most Black businesses need to get that first bump, right? In order to scale, to even get to C, to even get to A, right? Like to even get there, and they can't get it, right? Because nobody's there to give it to them. So if you guys are willing to put X amount of million into this culture fund, then you guys can put X amount of million into a fund that helps the community grow and scale businesses that can't get the money anywhere else because banks won't give it to them, right? Like venture capitalists, they're not venture capital ready, right? So like those opportunities, and to hopefully one day be a part of that conversation, is also something that we wrap into the legacy, because we are very active in that sense, right? Like we do want to make change in that way as well. But Don crossed off all the other ones in terms of like bringing jobs for Black people and things like that, but really more so having people see like these guys were active in the space. Not only did they just build a dope business and a dope brand, and but they also weren't silent. They also made moves to kind of shift the culture forward in terms of opportunity for everybody, and mostly people from our community. So that would be how I would answer that question for you guys.
I am so impressed with this.
Great.
Like I am so thoroughly impressed with the two of you and like what you guys are doing. Just like this whole idea of like creating Black Wall Street again. I mean, really coming up and being more open-minded about businesses and creating wealth in spaces that you wouldn't think to go into because of the fact that like, it's not popular.
It's not sexy,
I'm
it's not popular,
but you're not passionate.
Yeah.
And you were talking about just, quickly, and we'll move on, but just the idea of like partnership and moving Black businesses forward. Someone brought an example to me of like Issa Rae doing a really great job of this, where she partnered with a Black owned business that was already established, but because she has such clout already with her producing and who she is, that having her name behind a Black brand then pushes that brand up. So instead of, celebrities starting their own businesses or doing this on the third, it's like you should look to what's already being done and partner behind something that you feel like you want to put your name on it to elevate that Black business so that we can continue to create that wealth.
Totally.
I love that. And I want to continue to create Black wealth on the Black Creators Club. So you guys, please continue to subscribe, like, and comment on all of our posts on social media and on YouTube. But we love to hear feedback. If you guys would like to be a guest or think that there's someone that would be a great guest, please email us at theblackcreatorsclub@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at The Black Creators Club. Check out our website at theblackcreatorsclub.com, okay? Like everything. Black. Everything is super easy to find. We're so excited, and, please continue to support and love us, because these are the type of interviews. Do you see the gems that we just got today?
All the gems. And we thank you so much. But before we let you go, we have to keep it fun too. We have a quick game that we want to play with y'all. If you guys don't know of it yet, obviously look up Ride Fresh. But if you don't know, a lot of things that they do on their fragrances or on their car fresheners, air fresheners, is put a lot of fun rap lyrics on the back of it too. So you guys are, again, making it pop and making cultural, making it relevant.
Yes.
So the game that we have for you guys is called Rap Fresh. And what we're going to do is read out.
Are we rapping? Are we going to rap?
I mean,
like,
I got, if I got to bring out the Boogie Down Bronx, I would do it.
So
No, we're going to read out kind of a part of a classic rap lyric, and then we're going to ask you guys just to complete the lyric itself. If you know who it's from, feel free to say it. That's extra points, but it's really just, for you guys to complete it. So the first one, I can say it in the way that he says it, but I'm going to just say it regularly and we'll see what goes. So it goes, real G's move in silence.
Like lasagna.
Yes. Who did that? Who rapped that one.
That was Wayne. Is that a
Wayne.
warm up? Is that a warm
That
up?
was a warm up. I didn't know how much I should get in deep with it. We could do a round 2, but let's see what the next one is.
I feel embarrassed because I literally don't know any of these songs. Okay, I'm trying to right my wrongs, but it's funny.
Oh, that one.
I'm trying to right my wrongs.
I say it like how they said it. I'm trying to right my wrongs, but it's funny.
Them same wrongs.
I think I want to say Jay, but
I don't know who said that. Is that Jay?
No, wait, it's his bestie or his ex-bestie. Come on, you know this.
Jay.
Kanye, yes. I'm trying to right my wrongs, but it's funny. Them same wrongs help me write.
Let me write my song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go. All right.
I'm gonna blame that on me. It was the way I rapped it.
Y'all gotta rap it. Y'all can't say it.
Say yeah.
Okay. We'll wrap it.
Yeah.
I'm not a businessman.
I'm a
that's
businessman.
Jay.
Yes. How the hell y'all know that? Got it. Ride fresh. You know this one.
I don't know this one.
Okay, wait. If I'm fake, I ain't notice.
Yo, I know who this is.
Wait, let me get this straight. Wait, I'm the rookie, but my features and my shows take time today.
When y'all rap it though, it's like
You delivered it like Nicki.
yeah.
Okay, the last one. The last one you guys got.
Do I have this? Okay. Because it's 0 to 60 in 3.5. Baby, you got the keys.
It's more of a song.
That's a song. She's hot.
Because it's 0 to 60 at 3.5. Baby, you got the keys.
Hold on, is that Rihanna?
Yes. It's on one of your.
Hey, this is a rapper.
Drive.
He got a little bit more depth.
He got it.
You got it. You got the point for that. We're jumping ahead to do a round. You said what?
Now shut up and drive.
Shut up and drive. Okay, we do have that on the scent.
That's what. Exactly.
Yes.
Had to tie it back home.
Right. Okay. We got y'all caught up a little bit. Okay. That was really fun. We'll definitely have to play like a round 2, like maybe on Instagram Live or something. That would be so fun.
That would be fire. Let's do that.
Okay. We'll have to plan that and do that.
We can do like a co-live on Instagram or something like that for sure.
Yeah, bet.
Yeah, so we love that. And I'm even going to put that out there right now on the air. Like, we need to do a little collab with Ride Fresh.
Yeah, I mean, we have it. We got the giveaway going, which we teed up front. And so we'll definitely stay tuned for more details there.
On Instagram. Yes. So we're going to do a giveaway for all of our amazing listeners. So first place winner is going to get a year subscription of Ride Fresh air fresheners for their car. And then we have 2 other tiers that we're going to, there's going to be 10 winners in total. And you guys...
Or 5 winners in total.
5 winners.
2 fresheners each. And I mean, it's a lot of things going around, but I mean, it's going to be great. Ride Fresh all summer. So
it's Ride Fresh. Do not ride with that little tree thing in your car anymore.
Listen, Donovan, I have to be honest. I have one right now. What we going to
we need to get that out. Big shipment coming. Big shipment coming. Years worth.
Big shipment coming. Trey and Don, this was so fun. Let us know where we can reach you, or if there's anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to share.
Nah, this was great. Definitely good. It's funny, we haven't talked this much outwardly about the business. We did a couple like short interviews and stuff like that, but we haven't gone in depth this way really at all. So this was a great opportunity. I want to thank the Black Creators Podcast for inviting us on and let us talk shit for a minute. But this was really, really great. And if anybody out there wants to know anything about the brand, just follow us on Instagram at Ride Fresh, RIDEFRSH. So it's Ride Fresh without the E. And our website is ridefresh.com. Follow us, DM us. We're not all on other platforms yet. It's really mostly Instagram and Facebook for now. But Instagram has everything you need to know, all our new content. We have some exciting new partnerships rolling out with our NBA units, and our SpongeBob ones are coming shortly after that. So all the sports fans out there and basketball fans out there, we got something special rolling out next week for y'all. But yeah, just tap in, tune in, and follow us. Stay tuned, stay engaged. And again, I want to thank y'all too in the Black Creators Podcast for inviting us on and allowing us to hop on here and have this conversation. And yeah, no more little trees, man. If you see somebody with a little tree, I'm gonna give both of y'all enough Ride Fresh so that you can keep them in your car. And if you see a little tree or your friends have a little tree in there, you can just be like, yo, nah, don't do that.
No problem.
And yeah, you know, we're just looking forward to continuing to build the brand and get it to where we eventually want it to be.
Absolutely. Love it.
I mean, who y'all got for the NBA? Okay, like I know I'm off topic, but y'all.
We have 5 teams. So we have the Lakers, the Pistons, the Heat, the Warriors, and the Bulls.
The Lakers, you might have to do something else with that one.
We're both lifelong Lakers fans. It was a hurtful experience.
In loving memory.
But you know,
Yeah, LeBron will be back next year.
they'll be back. They'll be all right. LeBron, if you're listening, you need to Ride Fresh in your Rolls Royce or whatever you're driving this week too. So, you know, those are the teams where we're hoping to get to all 32 teams shortly. And so we'll just have to see how this rollout goes. But I get that before we hop, I do want to say shout out to all of our subscribers currently too. I don't want to forget y'all. You know, it is a community of supporters, and we do appreciate each and every person that supports our brand, whether it's a subscriber, a follower, or somebody who's just been watching us and likes our stuff. So shout out to everybody who showed us love. We just want to show y'all some love back as well.
Love that. All right, and you can find me chatting business, pop culture, lifestyle at Aquila Friends on all platforms.
And you can find me on Instagram chatting everything Black-owned businesses, and of course the Black Creators Club at Evan A. Chapman 12. You guys, we've had an amazing time. Thank you again to our brothers, our guests, and you guys remember to always abide by your ABCs.
Always be creating.
See you.
All right, we're done. Yo, that was lit.